Hola a todos, soy Javier Poveda y esto es De Bien TV, el canal en el que te lo vas a pasar de bien aprendiendo geografía, historia e historia del arte. Este vídeo va dirigido a mis alumnos de segundo de la ESO del IES Niel Armstrong de Valdemoro, en concreto a segundo de la ESO de sección los grupos B y E, pues que dan clase conmigo habitualmente. Antes de empezar con la clase, me gustaría desearos a todos que estéis bien de salud, y tanto vosotros como vuestras familias, y que me disculpéis un poco las pintas que llevo, porque como sabéis estamos todos confinados en casa y no hay peluquerías, por lo tanto no puedo cortarme estas greñas que tengo, y si me dejo el pelo suelto pues me cubriría los ojos y me impediría la visión. Dicho esto y sin nada más que añadir, we are going to start with the class. So we are going to follow the presentation that I sent you with an email this Wednesday, March 18th. And I recommend you to open the book on page 152, which is the first part of the Unit 9, which title is Cities. We are going to start today with the Unit 9. And the first part is Rural Space and Urban Space. So we have to know that until the mid-20th century, 70% of the world's population lived in rural areas. However, since that time, urban population has increased greatly and urban space has spread. What does this mean? This means that the first cities that the human beings built were here in the Middle East, in the region of Mesopotamia, which is modern Iraq and part of Iran. Here I hope the pointer is being shown in the video. And since that time, the populations have been inhabiting cities. For example, the Roman Empire was a urban empire because the Romans built many cities all throughout its territory, but most of the people lived in rural areas, lived in the countryside because they were working in agriculture or livestock farming. But this changed in the 19th century because of the Industrial Revolution. Many of the factories that were built in cities needed a lot of people to work in them. So many of the people who lived in the rural areas migrated to the cities and started populating the cities, and that's a trend that is being that it continues nowadays. So here you have a map of the percentage of the people who is living in cities nowadays. As you can see, many of the developed countries in the northern hemisphere most of the people, more than 60% of the people live nowadays in urban spaces, in cities. So we are going to talk about both rural space and urban space. The rural space is an extensive land, a very large land, with a low population density, usually below 150 inhabitants per kilometer squared. In rural space, people lived in villages where the main economic activities are in the primary sector, which are the agriculture, the livestock farming. Here you have in the image on the top right of your screen, you have livestock farming, forestry, or fishing. What is the landscape of the rural spaces? The land, usually the most common landscape in the rural spaces is this: plots of land which are used for agricultural use. A plot of land is each of these divisions of the land which are limited by fences or, like in this case, bushes. These plots can be different shapes and sizes. As you can see here, most of them are squares, but you can have here a trapezoid or a rectangle or something else. They can be very different shapes and sizes, of course. And the crop growing, the agriculture, as we know, is the main activity. Also, how is the settlements? How are the settlements? Villages are small settlements, and it is the places where the people in the rural areas live. They can be dispersed, which means that the houses are spread far apart, or they can be nucleated, that means that the houses are built close together, usually around a central square. Here in the images on the bottom right corner, you have an example of a dispersed rural pardon, dispersed village. Here you have a house here and a house here, another one here and here and here. They are separated by a long by a long distance from each other. And here you have a nucleated village, which is a town like we are used to see in, for example, in Spain, which all the houses are concentrated one close to the rest, and usually around a central square. If you have a village or your parents are from a village, you usually, I'm for sure you go there on summer. You are, I am sure you are familiar with this situation. So the next thing we are going to study is the urban space, which is the one that interests us in this unit. Urban space is built up land with large numbers of people. The population density in these spaces, in these urban spaces, is above 150 inhabitants per kilometer squared. The urban space is occupied by cities that have houses, businesses, factories, shopping centers, and many other facilities. Most of the active population, the active population is the part of the population who is in age of working. Usually in Spain, you can work since you are 16 years old. And most of the active population in cities work in the tertiary sector, the service sector. The cities are large settlements and generally with high buildings, as you can see here, very high buildings. These ones are, I think this image is from Dallas in Texas, the United States. And the transportation infrastructures occupy a large portion of the land. Here you have a very, how do you say this? Very wide highway, which is typical from the American movies that we see every day on TV. So what are cities? The cities, as we saw, they are large settlements in urban spaces, and their characteristics are the following. First, the size of the population. The population density is high. We saw that it is above 150 inhabitants per kilometer squared. And in Spain, to be a settlement is considered to be a city when its population is above 10,000 inhabitants. In other countries, this is different. For example, I think in the book it says that in Japan, more than a city, a settlement is considered to be a city when the population is above 30,000 inhabitants. So it can vary between countries around the world. Then we have the types of building. The typical buildings in cities are high residential blocks and office buildings. Some are skyscrapers. Skyscrapers are very, very tall buildings that rise above the rest of the buildings in the city, which in Spanish we call rascacielos. Here in this image we have some examples. For example, this is the Burj Dubai, which is the tallest building in the world. I think, if I remember correctly, its height is almost 1 kilometer long. And here, this one is in Madrid, I think. I think this is la Torre Repsol, or la Torre Caja Madrid. I don't know the owner exactly, but it is located in El Paso de la Castellana at the north of Madrid. Other buildings that we can find in cities are factories, are shopping centers. For example, this one are railway station, for example, Atocha in Madrid, airports, Madrid Barajas in Madrid, etc. The economic activities, Most of the active population works in the tertiary sector in service jobs. The service jobs are the ones that offer a service to the citizens. For example, health, hospitals, education. For example, I am a worker of the tertiary sector because I am a teacher and I am teaching you right now. This lesson, finance, for example, banks, communications, tourism, and many other features. Finally, the sphere of influence. Cities have greater commercial importance than villages. As you can notice, Madrid is a very is more important than Valdemoro, for example, in the hierarchy of the cities in Spain. That's very clear. So we go now to the next page, which is 154, the functions and structure of cities. First, we're going to talk about the function of cities, and we have to know that cities provide a wide range of functions. These are the social and economic activities that take place in the urban space. Which are these types of functions? We have the industrial function that in the past cities often served an industrial function. This usually happened in the 19th century during the Industrial Revolution. However, many cities in developed countries have relocated their factories to industrial estates. Estates, do not misunderstand this word with state, which is a different thing, situated beyond the city limits. Nowadays, the industrial buildings, the industrial estates are located in the outskirts of the cities, en las afueras, and not in the center, on the city center, or next to the, well, most of them, because some of them they are, but not next to the housing or the residential areas by reasons such as contamination or noise and some others. Then we have cultural and educational. Cities provide schools and education which serve people living in the city or in the area of influence outside it. For example, in Valdemoro we have the ES Niel Armstrong, which provide education for all of you, and when you turn 18, you will go, or most of you will go to university, and the university here in la Comunidad de Madrid are located, most of the universities in the capital city, Madrid, so you will have to move there. That's the reason why cities serve people living in the area of influence outside it. For example, all the universities in Madrid serve for all the people who is living in the province of Madrid, and even in the closer provinces such as Segovia, Ávila, or Guadalajara, or Toledo. Then we have the political function. The political and administrative institutions are located in the capital city of a country as well as in the province capitals. We have a very clear example here in Madrid, which is the capital of Spain, and most of, or almost all of the institutions of the state, such as, for example, el Congreso de los Diputados, or el Senado, or el Tribunal Supremo, la Moncloa, those who are the most important institutions of the states are located in Madrid, which is the most important city of Spain. And finally, tourism, because some cities have historical monuments and museums that attract tourists. In Madrid, I'm using always the example of Madrid because it's the one which is the most familiar with our situation. In Madrid, we have, for example, el Museo del Prado, la Biblioteca Nacional, Palacio Real, el Teatro Real, and many others, and some historical, it says here is a type of historical monuments with a C here before the I, no, before the A, I'm sorry. Or for example, another monuments such as la Plaza Mayor, or Monumento de Atocha, or I don't know. I'm only thinking about museums, or El Templo de Devot, for example. And this attracts a lot of tourists, as you can see if you have a walk in the cities in the center of Madrid. So we go now to the structure of cities, which are the parts of the areas of cities. We have the central zone, which is the one located in the middle, and in larger cities, in the most important ones, the central zone includes the central business district, usually abbreviated as CBD. Here, the CBD, you will see this abbreviation very often, where in this CBD are located the commercial and financial institutions such as banks, with this capital letter is not correct, businesses and offices. For example, in Spain, the CBD is located in the north of Madrid, in the Paso de la Castellana, near Plaza de Castilla, and next to the Santiago Bernabéu, which is la zona de Azca, and Las Cuatro Torres, etc. Then we have the city extensions. Aquí el diccionario del PowerPoint me ha jugado la pasada. It's extensions, which we call in Spanish ensanches, that are areas that were built in the 19th century as cities expanded. In Spain, we have an example here, el ensanche de Madrid, which is this area colored in red all over here, and which the most representative example is el barrio Salamanca, which is this part over here, which has a squared plan that we will study later in this unit. Then we have the residential areas, which are the areas that include housing and basic services for people, schools, health centers, shopping centers, etc. And they occupy the largest part of the cities. As you know, if you count the buildings of the cities, most of them are houses, are buildings where the people live. Then we have the industrial estates, that they are located on the outskirts of cities close to main roads where there is easy access. In Spanish, we call this los polígonos industriales, which are areas that are usually where the factories and the craft work is concentrated. They are usually located in the outside of the cities, the outskirts. For example, in Rivas, where I live, we have a polígono industrial and an industrial estate, which is located next to the highway, to the A3, and it's where all the or most of the industrial activity takes place in my municipality. Finally, we have commercial, service and transport areas that also are often located on outskirts, and they don't need further explanation. Finally, we're going to finish with the third part, which is changes in urban space. The first part is cities and urban growth. We are here now on page 156 on the textbook. We have to know that in the past cities expanded outward, so from the inside to the outside, from the historic center as new areas were added on, and urban space was compact. Here we have an example. This is a plan of Barcelona. Here we have the historic center, which is el barrio gótico and many others, and this is el exemple, this is how they call it in Catalan, which is an ampliation of an enlargement of the city, and this is another type of enlargement. We have a different plan, but we will go through this later in this unit. In contrast, today cities are diffuse cities, ciudad difusa. This means that the inhabitants and the economic activities have moved to the outskirts. For example, right now in Madrid, most of the population are concentrated on the outskirts of the city, on the outside areas of the cities of Madrid, in this case, and also the economic activities. Most of the shopping centers are not located in a historical center because there is no space for them, but they are in the outskirts. The expansion, without esta tilde también se me ha colado, of cities away from central city areas to low density areas is called urban sprawl. Okay? This is a term we have to take into account. So now we go to urban forms, which is the last part of today's class, we have to know that cities are the basic form of urban space, but urban growth has resulted in more complex forms, such as metropolitan areas. These ones include the densely populated city as well as other less densely populated municipalities. For example, here in this image you have Madrid, the Madrid metropolitan area. Here in red you have the city of Madrid, and around it we have several populations, several cities that are part of the metropolitan area of Madrid, including, for example, here Rivas, which where I am right now, and Valdemoro, I think it is, or this one, I am not sure because I'm not familiar with the south of Madrid, but if you are not part of the Madrid metropolitan area, I'm sorry, I am. Then we have conurbations. These ones includes, conurbation in Spanish means conurbación. This includes a much larger urban space consisting of several interconnected cities and metropolitan areas which have grown to form a continuous urban space. When two cities grow so much that both of them end joining one with each other, that's called a conurbation. A urban continuous which is formed by two or more different cities. For example, in Madrid, there's a great example. Here you have in the right of your screen with Alcobendas and San Sebastián de los Reyes. Both cities have grown so much that they have joined together and they are only separated by a street. One side of the street is Alcobendas and one side of the street is San Sebastián de los Reyes, of these streets here, which I am pointing right now. And finally, the most important, the largest urban form is the megalopolis. This is a vast urban space which consists on a chain of metropolitan areas that can be several hundred kilometers long. This happens, for example, in Central Europe and also in the United States. Here, the most important megalopolis that exists in the world, or at least one of the greatest examples, is the Boswas, which is the megalopolis from Boston here to Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States. All of this area is urban space. There is no rural space in all of this area, and there are several cities in this megalopolis. For example, you will know Boston, New York, here is New Jersey, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington. And this is around 250 kilometers, if I'm seeing, miles, which is a bit more of a distance. If I am looking at the scale correctly, at the map scale, around more than 200 kilometers long of urban space. It's like a very, very vast and big city. So we have finished with the, So we have finished with the first part of the Unit 3. Y ahora vuelvo al castellano. Espero que esta clase os haya servido. Este vídeo imagino que estará bien subido a YouTube y que se podrá consultar en cualquier momento y si no, pues lo mandaré de cualquier otra manera. Disculpad cualquier error que haya podido tener o de hecho, algún error que corregiré ahora en el PowerPoint porque me traiciona el diccionario del Office y espero que esto os sirva de ayuda para cualquier duda o para cualquier comentario respecto a este tema. Sabéis que podéis consultarme a mi correo didascalosjavi@gmail.com y dicho esto, nos vemos en el próximo vídeo, que será la segunda parte de esta Unit 3, que lo tendremos subido seguramente la semana que viene. Un saludo a todos y nos vemos.